Coming up on the Brave Sports Network, the Cedric Thomas program. We are in studio as we recap the Mississippi State game. We'll take your questions, your comments, your texts, your tweets, and we'll look ahead to the bye week. 8 of the 12 teams in the conference are off this upcoming week, including Alcorn and our next opponent, UAPB. So we'll talk about the bye week coming up. So we'll take a quick 30-second timeout. We'll get the Cedric Thomas Show started after this timeout here on the Brave Sports Network.
Some names immediately evoke an uncommon sense of family, an unmistakable sense of character, an undeniable sense of legacy. Always. Where trailblazers and innovators chart new paths of possibility. Where academic rigor empowers the strength of character to lead with knowledge and integrity. It's a name that harkens back to over 150 years of truly making a difference in our world. Always Alcorn.
Electric.
This is WP.
2 hours ago, Kyle arrived.
Live from the beautiful campus of Alcorn State University, we are in studio. The Cedric Thomas program coming your way. We'll recap the Mississippi State game. Some plays were made out there. Some short drives from Mississippi State. We'll kind of look at it and put it behind us and get ready for the bye week and get ready for UAPB coming up in a couple of weeks. Just 4 teams that are playing this week in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Most of the teams in the conference this Saturday are off, including Alcorn and UAPB. So we'll look ahead to the bye week. Give us a call, 601-877-6595. You can text a question, 601-301-2611. And on X, Tall Man Radio. Glad you can join us. Charles Edmond, Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas. Coach Thomas, how you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm blessed, Mr. Charles.
Interesting trip to Stark Vegas. They call it Stark Vegas, Starkville / Las Vegas. A lot going on there. The team stayed about an hour away in Philadelphia. They stayed at the Pearl River Casino. So it was different in terms of travel and logistics. How did the team kind of deal with that?
It was sound. Had everything blocked off. You really couldn't see, none of the gaming, aspect where kids could just walk in. They did a good job of monitoring that. Had really good meeting spaces and, really good areas where you didn't have to worry about a lot of traffic. They did well. So I thought they did a really good job of hosting.
And some games in which we are staying far away. Northwestern State, obviously, this game. And then when we go to Florida A&M, we're staying in Valdosta, Georgia. So how does that change the mindset at all, knowing that instead of a short trip right up the street, right up the road, just a few minutes, you got an hour trip or so to the stadium? Does that change anything in terms of preparation, mindset, any of that?
Yeah, it changes a lot. You really don't want to, but sometimes, you forced in that situation just because of all the vacancies, are taken up, just with the travel and, and the FAMU instance, it's homecoming. And so, it's some logistic that goes in it. You got to leave the hotel a lot earlier. You got to get to the stadium. You got traffic. You got all those things. So it cuts into your time when used to a specific routine, and now you're kind of off kilter with that. And so guys get a chance to sleep on the bus. You really don't want them to sleep on the bus. You really want to go hotel, straight to the stadium, get them moving, get them, kind of lathered up. But they get a chance to close their eyes, and you got to get them back up. Coach Gant does an amazing job. At what time we need to get them up, what type of music they need to listen to, and things of that sort.
Well, let's take a look at it, Coach. 63-0, the final score. Of course, this is your second season. This is the third FBS matchup. Last year was Vanderbilt. Last year was UAB. And this year is Mississippi State. So each game is dynamic in its own way, has a whole bunch of different stuff with it. So with this game being in-state, obviously drew a lot of attention. With the score being what it was and how it turned out, I'm going to use a basketball analogy. When you play out of conference and you lose by a big margin, you hear the coach say, I'm going to burn up the stat sheet and just move on. So for this game, considering how it went down, is this a game that you're going to remember? And I know you remember a lot of things, a lot of games. Is this one you're going to remember, or is this one you're going to forget?
No, we got to watch it. We got to look at it. I told the guys, my homework was to look at every individual player that played, which was everybody we traveled. Everyone that would travel last week got opportunity to be out there. We're still in the developmental phase, making sure that we got guys in the program that understands, what that competition level look like. We got scouts at the game that want to see a couple of our players, and so they had opportunity to show their talent on display. And so, I thought the guys did a really good job. In certain situations of doing it. So, they, our kids are visuals. They got to see it. And so we went in, we watched every single snap, had opportunity to grade it, and, put it behind us just like we do every other game.
Well, let's take a look at it. Coach, Mississippi State won the football, and they took the football. So State got it at the 25-yard line. Blake Shapen, we saw him. We talked about him last week. First pass of the game, deep downfield for Brennan Thompson, overthrown. Stamarian Edwards got a pretty good shot on him, and that was a good sign. I thought, Coach, you got to shake the quarterback up a little bit. And I thought in that very first play of the game defensively, we got a pretty good hit on him to kind of knock him off kilter.
It was a good look for Steve, to be able to do that. He was one of the guys that the scouts was actually, intrigued about seeing, at that game. And, T just got to do a better job of running. I talked to my guys at State, after the game, Coach Danz, who was a good friend, Alex, those guys that was with Willie. He said they think that guy, is maybe the fastest guy in college football. And so T just got to get out of there and run, man. The first time wasn't as bad, but the second time is that like that old saying, you don't believe fat meat greasy. And, the second play, they got a chance to hit us with an explosive. And that kind of was just a gut punch to us.
That was the same play. They ran the same play.
Oh, the exact same play. Just different player. He took 0 out, I think put 4 in, and just had miscommunication on the call. His eyes was bad. And sometimes, like I said, that SEC speed is a whole lot different from what we see in conference.
Well, obviously, as we take a look at some of the highlights for those that are watching, and State won the toss and took the football right off the bat. And as you could see right there, deep downfield, and it was over with the catch right there for the touchdown. That was the second play of the game. They went right back to it, Coach. And was there anything about Mississippi State's offense that surprised you? You look at all the plays, you look at the explosives that they had. Was there anything that caught you off guard defensively?
Not me specifically, because I've been around. We've seen it as a coaching staff. I think just more so for the kids. It's just warp speed. That's extra fast. I mean, we come down for halftime, and I think we got 5 guys coming out the box, and they got 13. So that says a lot of just about personnel, how they can get things transition a whole lot faster. So just the manpower with all that, makes a difference. And I thought, early our guys really just didn't adjust to the speed well.
Well, they scored on the second play. They went 75 yards to go up 7-0. We got the football at the 14:38 mark, and on a 3rd down and 1, Coach Reggie Davis with a 9-yard gain for a first down. Coach, I thought that we hit them with some stuff. We were able to run the football up the middle, pick up some yards there. You talk about explosives, but I thought we were kind of setting up for some explosives, and we had an opportunity deep. We had a ball intercepted, but I thought we were able to do a good job ground and pound straight up the middle.
Those guys up front, man, they did a really good job of creating a new line of scrimmage. They wasn't scared. They had some knockback, and you could tell by some of the plus 3, plus flow runs. I thought those guys did a really good job up front, and even blocking on the perimeter. And the running backs, they ran hard. And so, I thought those guys, man, really grew up and did a really good job versus a really good defense.
So with that, we got a first down, and then the drive stalled. Mississippi State's second drive started at the Braves' 29-yard line, and then Fluff Bothwell with the touchdown run to put them up 14-0, capping off a 71-yard drive.
Yeah, those guys, the tempo, was one thing, but, those backs ran hard, and they give you some really good compressed looks where they push crack on the safeties. There's some schematic things in there that we didn't fit up well, but we kind of wanted to bleed it out, and have some long drives. We didn't want to give up the explosives like the first play, and so we said, hey, look, if we can make these guys drive the football, take some time off the clock, then, hey, it's a win-win for us.
I think that was an 8-play drive that they went 71 yards to grab the lead. 14-0. So the Braves' next drive, Cedric Thomas, 9:15 left in the first quarter. Jalen Tolbert's pass intercepted by Broomfield. Now, that ball should have been a touchdown, or at least in the red zone with an opportunity right there. I thought it was a huge play in the first quarter. And that was a nicely thrown ball, I thought, by Jalen Tolbert. Just couldn't come down with it.
Yeah, we just gotta make those. We've been saying it now for not 2 weeks in a row, but the week prior, the same deal. And so we just got to make those catches. Quarterback does a really good job of putting it out there. The O-line did an amazing job protecting. And so one of those deals is just kind of take the life out you when you get explosive versus a SEC type opponent. We got to come down with it. And, unfortunately we didn't. And so defense was forced to go back out and try to get a stop.
When you're playing up, and I've seen many of these matchups, whether it's Alcorn or other teams, you may get a couple opportunities, but the early part of the game, you got to be able to me, establish yourself early on, and you may not get opportunities, but when you get them early, you got to cash in, and that was one right there.
Yeah, that's a prime example. You talk about, Reggie Davis had the big run to create a new set of downs, and then we get a shot, one-on-one. He outruns the guy, and unfortunately, just dropped the football. And so we got to cash in on those. That can't be a recurring thing as we go into conference play, especially, playing a level of competition up, like we did on Saturday.
So offensively, they're up 14-0. Defensively, giving up a big play early. And then we got the football at the 7:55 mark, forced a punt, and on a Duval 41-yard punt, Anthony Evans III with a 43-yard punt return to set up another score. Coach, talk a little bit about that return.
Yeah, we knew they had some explosive guys down there, and we just didn't want to line drive kick it, to them, and Meese just didn't put enough air on it, kind of line drived it, and them guys held us up and kind of got us displaced, and so he was able to do a really good job on the return, but we just got to get more air on that, so the guys got opportunity to cover the corner.
So at that point, Coach, it was 28-0 with that return. And then we got the football with 6:10 left in the first quarter. It was 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Did you feel like there was some nerves, some jittery players out there in the early moments of this game?
Yeah, without a doubt. It was a few that had demise. I mean, when them Cowboy Bells got the rocking, and just the wherewithal to be able to maintain that, that's a different environment. And so we got some guys who hadn't played a whole lot of college ball, but also had guys that didn't play against Vanderbilt and UAB last year. And so I thought they settled down, a little bit, after that first quarter, and especially after the half. And so that's the stage, and so I want to play these games. I want to continue to get these kids these opportunities, but we just got to be mindful and be ready, once we're on that stage.
Speaking of ready, getting ready for the Cowbells, preparing for the Cowbells. We were talking at practice last week, and I remember Arizona State brought Cowbells to practice when they got ready for Mississippi State. How did you simulate the Cowbells as we got ready?
And you can't. We had it. One of our former players, that came from Mississippi State. One of the DNs. He did a really good job of bringing his. However, he only had 3, and so it wasn't enough. And so we tried our best, but you can't really put an example, for that until you actually in it. And so I thought that was just amazing atmosphere. So when he brought him out, I looked at him. I was like, man, you might as well put them on the ground. And so that's what he did. So I just thought, that's just an advantage to them, just that atmosphere, just the noise and the sound. And once the guys just kind of let that, kind of get up out their system, I thought they settled down a little bit. And then it wasn't so much the noise. It was more so, who we was going against.
So what's important as well, when you have a game like that, and with the new rules about communication from the coaches to the quarterback and the defensive players, there is that helmet communication, correct? Is that?
Yeah, we just added this. This was the first game that we had it.
Okay, so how did that work with that communication into the quarterback's helmet?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really, really good. You could tell, Jalen, had some assist, from coach, just talking through some concepts to settle them down. The same thing with Steve. He wear them on defense, and so he was able to not only just get the call, but also, share that information with the rest of the guys. So, kudos to the administration for, getting that into us, and so I can really see that being a benefit for us going, in the future.
Do you think that neutralized at least a little bit that cowbell noise, knowing that, that's in his ear with the communication?
Yeah, without a doubt, Mr. Charles. I mean, you're talking about we're giving hand signals, and and then they got to transition that information, verbally, and even because you don't want to just, do your signals out on the field, because they recording it, they looking at it, they'll get all your calls, and so that's a way where we can kind of hide those signals, but also still have a line of communication without it, because you can't hear, you won't be able to hear, and so we just had to find a way from a nonverbal standpoint to be able to just get that line of communication across to everybody.
Well, college football is becoming like the NFL. I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
I mean, you look at NIL as free agent, and you look at a free agency, and you look at the way you talk to the quarterback. It's the exact same way.
So with that touchdown after the fumble, it was 35-0 at that point, Coach. And then at 7:20 left, at that point, the Braves got the football at the 25-yard line. Then you punted the football. You had Duval kicking, and now you had Franklin Rogers back there punting. Talk about that.
Yeah, we just said we was going to play everybody. I told the guys early in the week, and I think I said it on the show, I wanted every single player that was traveling, get an opportunity to get on that stage. One, we used it as an evaluation process, and two, we owe it to those guys to come and work and bust their tail every day to have that opportunity. So your mission was accomplished. Every single player that traveled had opportunity to get either from 1 to 40 snaps.
So Rogers had 6 punts in the game, and Duval had a couple. So obviously playing everyone. Mississippi State got the football at the 5:53 mark, and then they were able to score the football there to make it 42-0. At what point, Coach, in these games, boy, they just get away from you so quickly. I mean, looking at Southern and Fresno State, we talked about some of these other games. At what point did you say, you know what? I'm not saying throw the white towel out there, and of course halftime was 10-minute quarters, but when did you kind of sense that, all right, this one is kind of getting away from us, or it's got away from us?
Well, for me, it's more so not the score. It's more so, just the protection piece. Because once we keep our guys out there, for the duration, we may score a couple points and may look different. However, that threshold of going against that veracity of what they got, even they 2s and 3s, from a scholarship standpoint, are still just a little bit better, than ours. And so, I wasn't going to, lead them guys out there. I wanted guys to be able to play, but also, as the leader, I got to protect them. Moms and dads drop their, they student, the young adults, home for me, to make sure, that I take care of them not only just off the field, but on the field also. And there's been some situations where some guys have really been hurt, playing these games. And so I just, and we believe in faith. We understand, from that standpoint. But once that score got as such, then I knew, hey, look, let's pull some guys back and let's give these younger guys some opportunities.
We'll take a timeout here. We'll look at the halftime in which it was 10-minute quarters. How did that come about, those discussions? And we'll talk about it. This is not the first time that this has happened. It happened last year when UAPB played Arkansas, and there's some sprinkling of opportunities when that did happen and how that conversation came about, going from 15 minutes to 10-minute quarters in the third and fourth. We'll talk about that, and we'll look ahead to some of the individual efforts that the Braves had in this game. As Cedric Thomas mentioned, a lot of players played some snaps. So we'll talk all about that, look ahead to the bye week. We'll get to it after this timeout here on the Braves Sports Network.
Agriculture isn't just what we do, it's who we've always been. At Alcorn State University's College of Agriculture and Applied Sciences, we've always understood that feeding the world takes more than knowledge. It takes heart. Our rigorous programs blend time-honored wisdom with cutting-edge science. Here, you'll join generations of innovators who've always pushed boundaries while keeping their roots firmly planted in tradition. Always growing, always innovating, always Alcorn.
Founded in 1920, the Southwestern Athletic Conference has produced some of the most iconic names in sports. Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Alcorn State, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, Grambling State, Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M, Southern, Texas Southern, and the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff have united to embark on a new era of greatness. The Southwestern Athletic Conference, building champions for life.
All right, welcome back here on the Braves Sports Network, 91.7 WPRL, WPRL.org, WMIS, WTYJ, 1240 AM, 97.7 Fayette Natchez, NatchezRadio.com, and 90.1 WMPR in Jackson. And we're on Facebook Live, WPRL's Facebook page. Believe we have a phone call. Cedric Foster from Tallahassee, where we will be in about a month. Florida A&M's homecoming, and they won over the weekend. Cedric Foster joins us on the telephone. Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, and people, they kind of excited about Alcorn coming here because if I'm right, and you all need to correct me, this would be FAMU has played everybody in the SWAC since they've been in the SWAC, and we're going to be and they have never played us, So we're pretty excited about it, and we plan on. It's a friend of mine that good friend with. We're going to try to do we planning on doing a meet and greet on that Friday night and stuff, so we want to try to make it happen for all the Alcornites and stuff. But Coach T, I want to ask you a question because I played some ball myself, and I'm gonna tell you something. You lose one, okay, we made some mistakes. You lose two, wow. You're thinking some kind of way, and definitely three. How are the guys feeling? I mean, they got to be feeling some kind of way right now. I mean, because here next Saturday, the 27th. I'm planning on coming up for that game and stuff, How are they feeling, and what are you guys doing to keep the morale up? Because I know we got some competitors on that team, and I believe in my heart that they probably feeling some kind of way. They just got to get out of this hole, So what are you all, the coaching staff, what are y'all doing to kind of keep them up and letting them know that it's going to be another day, We now, because next week, week after next, that's when the rubber meets the road, because these are all conference games, and a lot of those games we're going to be playing are in the West, and I guess what I'm saying is, I know you all telling them that, hey, we still got a shot to win the championship, the Western Championship, and go on and play for the SWAC championship, but I know they got to be feeling some kind of way. So, Coach, I'm gonna hang up and hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah. Well, Coach, what he was saying was that I know you couldn't quite hear all of that. He was saying, some these tough losses, players are feeling a certain kind of way. What do you do to kind of keep the motor going at this point?
You just work, and understand that all our goals are still in front of us. Of course, every year you want to be undefeated, but we come into the conference, with an off week with the same record as everybody else, in the conference. So we, got to get better and continue to work on those things that harbored us these first 3 games. And so, the guys are in good spirits. They working, and so we just got to understand why we at where we at, and how we get ourselves out of it. So, the guys understand that. We just got to go out and do it. And so, just a good week to kind of get the kinks out and kind of narrow this roster down going into the conference. We got a 7-game playoff here on out. And so, guys will be ready. And each day we just got to continue to get better and right these wrongs and understand, hey, we put ourselves in a situation, from a non-execution standpoint, and we got to get ourselves out of it.
All right, Cedric, still there? Okay, all right, well, Cedric, we appreciate your call, and we'll be seeing you down in Tallahassee. So, Coach, at halftime, with the Sounds of Dynamite won the halftime. No question about that. Fans are still talking about it. The performances are out there on social media. Then the PA announcer comes up with 2 minutes left and says the 2 schools have agreed to 10-minute quarters. So I looked it up, and this is not the first time that this has happened. It's called the NCAA Mercy Rule. While fans might call it that, the NCAA doesn't officially list it. Instead, the rule book allows both head coaches and the referee to mutually agree to shorten the length of quarters if the game situation calls for it. Blowouts, weather delays, or like this cultural scheduling conflicts can all qualify. So was that something you were thinking about? Did you go to Mississippi State officials? Did they come to you? How did all of that unfold?
You get that information on Friday. When we got to the hotel. I guess all the administration have those particular meetings, and so once the admin pulled me to the side and asked me about it, of course I agreed to it. It's only right. At the end of the day, it's player safety, and that was kind of my mindset. And so I signed off on it and was excited about getting it done and getting those guys out with the bumps and bruises that they had.
So you knew about the information on Friday. When did they go to you during halftime to kind of let you know? Was it before the half was over with, right before second half? When did all that happen?
Oh, well, it based on the score. You already know if that game out of hand or not. So they ain't got to tell you no more. It's understood. So once we got rolling, and basically, once that score, what it was, then I knew what the second half was going to look like.
And so for player safety, that's obviously, this is not the first time it's happened. I was just reading up on it. You were mentioning Grambling, Ohio State. First time I read about it, UAPB in Arkansas last year. So it's not just something that just happens. It does happen from time to time when these games get out of hand. And just with 10 minutes now instead of 15 minutes, what's your mindset? Just trying to get through it, keep players healthy, and what were you looking for in the second half of the shortened third and fourth quarter?
Some of those younger guys that we talked about, some of them, this was some really good, good playing time for them. And we, like I said, we played all of them. And some of those guys came out, looking very impressive, even though it may have been their 2s and 3s, but that's still a high level of talent and competition that they was going against. So I think we got, 4 or 5 kids that played and stood out that can help us coming down this, this conference stretch, whether in a special team aspect or offensively and defensively.
Well, we got the football with the 10-minute third quarter at a 25-yard line. Mississippi State got it. And then the third drive, Coach, 5:53 left in the third quarter. Andre Washington came in. So for me, obviously making the quarterback change, I was looking for Trey Lawrence. Give us, if you want to talk to us about Trey Lawrence and his status with this program on this team at this point.
Well, Mr. Charles, I only discuss, guys that's in the program. And so Andre is the bag up right now. And so we're excited about his growth and getting us better and finding some things that he can do to, get us, to win in the West. And after that, Achilles Ringo will be the next one up.
So Andre Washington getting the start as the backup. Talk about what you saw in camp from him and being elevated on the depth chart.
A natural dual threat, quarterback, got a live arm, can make some throws, but also, is dangerous with his legs. And so we're excited about, him being able to do that from a dual threat standpoint. Still got some little dust knock off just with some progression read, but it's so much better now that you can have, have Coach Gales and to talk to him, through the player coach, device. So
with Washington getting the start on this drive at the 25-yard line, it was a 3rd down and 7 on the shotgun, going deep to Elijah Griffith. Talk about that play.
Elijah, he had a big catch for us earlier to on the 3rd down, and so we excited about him and his growth and getting him more playing time, and having Dre to just be able to stand tall in the pocket and just try to complete some balls versus this really good defense we was going. They still had some guys out there that could really play, and so we wanted to at least see what he could do from a pass game standpoint.
So Mississippi State did score to make it 56-0 at that point, start of the fourth quarter. And then you made another change, Coach, at quarterback. Talk about that.
Yeah, Achilles Ringo, freshman. Just wanted to let him get some of the experience. Everybody was going to play. And I thought he did a good job just handing it off, doing what he's supposed to do. We had an issue. Going forward, that we took care of, just from a locker room standpoint. And so, we're excited about Achilles. He's doing a really good job. And, in today's climate, you one snap away, from playing. So we got to make sure all those guys be ready to lead us and get us to where we want to go.
Well, the final score of 63-0, the final score there. Coach was just looking at the play-by-play, the chart, the scoring breakdowns. Look, we had some chances early. We talked about that, and it's just not to sugarcoat anything, but you look at their touchdowns in the first half. 4 of the 6 touchdowns that they got in that first half, I did the math, averaging 32 yards. So a short field on the majority of the touchdowns in the first half.
Yeah, and those things are correctable just with the punt team. I know Coach Fossman will do a really good job. He grinds those guys, and so we just got to understand, when we talk about putting air on the football, it's different when you're playing in conference, just from a distance standpoint. But you can't kick these guys, that's running sub, 4-3s and 4-4s line drives, and you don't get a guy's time to be able to get it. And so I thought that, magnified about the turnovers. Dame had a big fumble right there inside the 20. Tyler Citizen had a big fumble. And so that's, those are the things that, when I addressed the team, that I wasn't to my liking. And so, we can't get a guy the football who's going to put it on the ground. And so that was the hardships and the negative that I took from the game. The effort-wise, the kids played their tail off, they worked their butts off, but we just can't, we can't turn the ball over. Not free-handedly, just with contact and fumbles.
I know we've got respect. And the one thing we've had all year, we've had receivers open. Getting it to them. I mean, starting with Northwestern, Alabama A&M, we had receivers open, just a matter of getting it to them.
Well, I don't think it's just necessarily getting it to them. What about when they get it to them and they drop it? I think we might be somewhere in leading, and I know in this conference in drops. And so I think the quarterback doing an amazing job getting it to him. You see him pause in the pocket, not rattled. He, did a good job with his legs. And so, we got some playmakers that got to catch the football, or, we got to bring somebody else up. And so it's going to be some changes to the lineup, guys that going to catch the football are the ones that's going to play.
I look at the receivers, Coach, getting open and even in the running game. And, we have 2 guys, Ja'Cory and Sewell. You talked about Citizen. You talked about Reggie Davis, a 3-headed monster there. How would you assess how we were able to run the football? We had some holes in the first 3 drives, Coach. The first 3 drives, we picked up first downs, and that's how you kind of slow the cowbells down a little bit, grind it out, move the football, run the football. We were able to get some of that, and I'm like, okay, just couldn't sustain much, whether it was a turnover, an interception, but we were able to move the football, and they only had 1 sack, Mississippi State.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with the SEC defense too. I don't think our guys just, totally didn't want to continue to move the football, but you got to give those guys kudos and credit, also. And so right now it's a two-headed monster with the running back room. Tyler Citizen, as long as he's fumbling the football, he won't be a part of that head. And so he got to protect the football, and we're gonna move some guys up and move some people around, and we're gonna get the guys the football that's gonna hold on to it. And so, but overall, we're excited, about. Just how they played collectively, they fought to the end, and we just got to make those plays. And we know some guys that, got the capability. But you are who you put on tape, and if you're gonna drop the football consistently, it's our job as a coaching staff to put guys out there that make sure that they can catch it.
When Mississippi State kind of had it going in that first quarter, you saw some trickeration there. Was there anything that caught you off guard with that?
Yeah, we noticed, they had the quarterback in the third string quarterback in the game, but it's moving so fast, Mr. Charles, and the tempo up, and the guys, they can't get the verbiage out to be able to let the corner know, and then they double move, and then, that was a big time play for them. And so, I didn't expect to see it, but, I guess they got to put things on tape, for other opponents that they got to play.
Yeah. When you look at our quarterback situation, you talked about Jalen Tolbert, and talk about how he was able to move the pocket, the poise in the pocket. How would you assess his performance overall?
I thought he led. That's the first thing I wanted to see versus their really good defense. Was it going to be rattled? They got some hits on him. Disappointed that he slid a little bit short. Not to get that first down. He got to stick his head in there. He got to get that. That's an extra three downs we get. But you see him moxie in the pocket. He hit Amarion across the middle through a big time slant. And so we just got to do a good job of moving his platforms and just just having him to do what he can do inside the system. But using his legs on the zone read is really good. And so I think if he do that, we can keep him upright. We'll find ourselves in the thick of this thing down the stretch.
Yeah, Jalen Tolbert in the game was 11 of 18 for 80 yards and had the pick, of course, of sacked once, the long of 21. How has he gotten acclimated into this box storm offense with the defenses he's seen from Mississippi State, Northwestern State?
He's still processing. I just left the film room with him, and he's still processing it. Still, got the wideouts, after practice, throwing and catching. And so, what he's doing is just a small litmus of what we expect to see going forward. If the offensive line can keep Mississippi State from only getting 1 sack, then, we should be in pretty decent shape, going forward. But that's got to be the mindset, every week. It has to be a Mississippi State mentality, and we can't take anybody for granted, being 0-3 and thinking just because we feel like we got a little decent personnel, we can just take anybody light.
Mississippi State gave up 244 yards, I believe, against Arizona State last week. We had 27 carries for 68 net yards. To talk about that. Yeah,
the offensive line, I thought they did a good job. Creating a new line of scrimmage in some spots and some spurts. And the running back, running behind his pass. Both of those guys was violent. Reggie got a little banged up and didn't play anymore, I think, after the second quarter. But you see Sewell, get opportunity, scouts see him play because they was at the game. And so I thought they did a good job up front.
Talk about Reggie Davis. I interviewed him for the pregame last week, being from Montgomery. And, obviously the opportunity from Tennessee Chattanooga coming here. And he got emotional at the end because his family saw him play last week, and I guess obviously wanted to win the game. Reggie Davis, he's a very humble kid, but a lot of emotion there, just in tune with what's happening.
Yeah, he's one of our guys, and so the core guys like that now, even though they transferred, they starting to have their imprint on the team. And so I spoke to the guys, after the game, but he was one of those guys that. That does the player-led meetings and understanding, hey, look, this is what it should look like and what the optics and, all the talk and chatter may be. He want to kind of keep those guys boxed in and make sure that everybody's level-headed and doing everything to get this thing in the right direction.
You talked about Tyler Citizen. You got to hold on to the football. But we've seen the good parts of Tyler Citizen when he does hang on to the football.
Yeah, and that's the thing, for us to see a whole lot more, you just got to maintain the possession. That's a 9-yard game, Mr. Charles. Worst come to worst, it's 2nd and 1 right there. And instead of, us getting more, downs and taking the defense off the field, or not putting the defense back on the field. They got to go back and play more defense, because of the lack thereof. And so he understood it. I talked to him, yesterday in the team meeting, and those guys will be, disciplined for it. But we trust him, but also we got to bring, Cam Stewart and some of those guys up to have opportunities, because if we're gonna lay it on the ground, then we, everybody else deserves at least the opportunity to carry it.
Well, let's talk about Cameron Stewart. He saw some action Saturday. What about his running style and how he fits into that running back mold?
It's a little different, because you got two of the bigger guys that can kind of hit it downhill and got long speed. So he kind of get lost behind that offensive line, but got great vision. Been with us for the last 2 years, but might be even before that. And so he was on the scout team, giving us really good looks. We're gonna bring him down and give him opportunity to be a part of it. He got some carries for us last year, so he's familiar with the system. And so we're just trying to round this roster out, with guys that we feel like going forward, give us opportunity to play high caliber football down the stretch.
We know what Damian Jones did in the receiving corps last year. We're trying to get him to football, but just talk about the receiving corps from Saturday. 13 receptions, just 87 total yards. How would you evaluate the receivers?
Just possession. We can't have the drops. Tyron got a drop. Over in traffic on their sideline. He got to maintain that. And then you get the one with Jarvis. That kind of was the gut punch to us. And then Dane putting it on the turf. And so we just got to clean up those miscues if we're gonna throw it to those guys, or we got to find other people to get the football to. But it also was some bright spots. You see Elijah come back this week and have a big-time third down catch. Omarion in the middle of the field, for about maybe 15 to 20 yards, which was good. And so, we just got to continue to get it to the guy that's open. And we just got to maintain the possession. The name of the game is football, and the most important part is keeping the football.
And you talked about the kicking game. We had an opportunity for a field goal with Brandon Wilcox, missed a 36-yarder. We thought from upstairs that he made that. How would you assess that particular field goal attempt?
Yeah, we got to do a better job of the snap. It was a little bit inside, but Brandon and Frank, those guys' operation are pretty good. Inside that range, we feel good about him making that. And so it's a day-to-day grind. Continue to get them guys on the same page and just making sure the operation gives him opportunity to be successful.
You said last week you're going to make a change in terms of your punt return unit. Talk about those changes that you made.
Yeah, we wasn't going to play Omarion, but then we had some in house that I keep in house, and so he was able to go back out there. And so we'll try it again this week. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to be a disciplined ball club, and we're going to do things on and off the field right, or violators will be prosecuted.
So Omarion Blakes, who else was kind of stepped up that will get an opportunity to return those punts and kickoffs?
We'll put Trey Minor, back there. He'll get opportunity. Mako, of course, he's always doing it. It's just, he's been hurt. And so he's another guy that'll be back there also. And then, of course, Jacoby Matthews, he'll be back this week. And so, we got some guys back there that'll have those opportunities. Every day will be evaluated. Every catch, every kick will be evaluated from here going forward.
You talked about the injuries and the other stuff. Someone was asking about Mako. What is his status going forward?
I saw him in the gym today on the jug machine. I think that ankle's still bothering him. We'll see him, if he can run around, put some pressure on it. He's banged up with that ankle. Diablo got turf toe. Reggie got a bruise, bruised shin. But for the most part, guys are okay. We got a shoulder. Gideon Spotsville is banged up with his shoulders. TJ Jasper, he's out with a cracked collarbone. So, we got some guys that's banged up, but, next man up, next man mentality.
Well, this early bye week then, with everybody, with the bang-ups, this early bye week is kind of at a good time.
Yeah, ain't no doubt. I think everybody, when they saw the schedule, was looking at the 7-game, deal now, and you sitting there saying, boy, it's coming at the right time. So we can get those guys healthy, kind of recalibrate, and get ready for this really good UAPB football team.
Well, let's look at the defensive side of the ball, Coach. You had E.B. Hinton leading the way with 5 tackles, Jaquez Dew. Talk about the guys that stepped up and had solid games, and then you talked about playing everyone. So who got some action that usually doesn't, that kind of made plays for you?
Tobias, to see him come back, he was the transfer, from Mississippi State. To see him fly around and play with some velocity, and ferocity was really good. He did a really good job. EJ, it was good to see him back, in his old neck of the woods, playing at a high level. Of course, Stamarian, Steve always, he gives us everything he got. And so, just some of the younger guys, it's good to see Tariq Snow. He's a really talented player that just kind of got to get out his own way, but we expecting really good things out of him. And then Cam Brown, at the safety position, he does a really good job. And Dylan Correa, a former baseball star, here he's full-time linebacker now. And so those guys, did a really good job taking advantage of the plays that they had.
Dylan Crowell, former baseball player on the football field. We talked about him a couple of times in fall camp. How has he made that adjustment from baseball to football?
He's going to be a tremendous player. This is really his first time ever going through a whole 12 months of a football cycle, because normally he's splitting time with baseball, and then the year before he went through the spring, so you can see his body starting to fill out. He's a special team leader for us now, and he's also getting some snaps at the linebacker position, so he's one of those core guys that are really valuable to this football team.
When you look at McLaurin and the back end of that defense, you talked about the speedy receivers. I mean, against Arizona State, you look at their quarterback, and he basically targeted two receivers, and clearly when early in that game, those two receivers made big plays.
Yeah, those guys can pick them up and put them down, but we got to do better, do a better job with our eyes, and just be disciplined, understanding, hey, when it's time to get up and run, we got to get up and run. I thought we just had too many mishaps. We got a 3rd and 16 on maybe on the 25-yard line, and we give a touchdown up, where the safety is displaced and not where he's supposed to be. Got bad eyes on the trick play, and so we got to do a better job of just cleaning that up for the guys. Talent-wise is there, but we just got to understand the small things mean something. We got to put ourselves in situations to get a defense a great opportunity to get out the field.
So what was the message to your team after a game like this, Coach, knowing that we got a bye week coming up? You just talked about trying to get healthy and get ready for UAPB, where it's going to be a lot of eyes, a lot of folks in Memphis. That's a big ball game. UAPB's off this week as well. What was the speech to your team? I know you read body language, you read eyes. What was the reading in the locker room after a game like that?
The biggest thing for me was just, the smiling and the kind of giggling. I addressed the team, really strict, after the game, not because of the effort, in that it was just, too many, when I turned around, it was just too many, laissez-faire type faces. And so I addressed that, privately with them. And my homework, like I said, I wanted to watch every snap of everybody to evaluate to see what what the behavior was, in that football game. And I thought overall, we might have been at a 98% success rate. I addressed those two, players who I felt like, they body language and they presence on the football field didn't show it, and had that discussion with them. And so the guys understand, why they're in the situations. We understand as a staff, and we hadn't touched the surface. We so much better than what we showed, and we just got to do small things, and then those small things are turning to big things. Start from practice, but also under the lights. You can do it in practice all you want to, but at 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever that may be, we got to go out and we got to put it together. And this is a good time to get in and kind of clean up all the details, get a chance to just focus in on ourselves for a couple of days before we really just crack hard down on UAPB.
So as you get ready for the bye week, and as this grind that we have now, after this week, we're playing every week all the way through to the end of the season. Some people might say it might be time for an overhaul, a total redo, or reset. Do you feel like a reset is needed, or do you feel like tweaks are needed?
Yeah, it's more so the tweaks, just small things, or just, a position here, a catch here, a personnel change here, a scheme and schematic, that's good. We're where we're supposed to be. We just got to make the play. And from a coaching standpoint, we just got to make sure that we're addressing and making sure the guys doing what they coached to do. We can't turn a blind eye because a kid skill set may be a little fast or he may be a little athletic. Everybody got to hold to the standard, and that starts with me. And so we're going to tighten this thing up, and they know it. We had a really, really in-depth conversation about, what it's going to look like going forward, and they up for the challenge. And so we're excited about it. We got a lot of football left, and so we'll get ourselves definitely out this situation, and it starts at 6:30 in the morning, getting ready for the 7-game playoff.
We'll take a time out here. We got some questions coming in, and we'll get to those, and we'll look ahead to the bye week coming up. This Saturday, 8 of the conference teams, 8 of the 12, are off this Saturday. And, didn't see that one as I didn't really look at the schedule until today. But there are only 4 conference teams that are playing Saturday. The Braves' next opponent, UAPB, they're off this week. How does that change things? You're used to looking at film from a game that was played couple of days ago, but UAPB's off as well. They won last week, by the way. So we'll take a break here. We'll be right back after this Time Out here on the Braves Sports Network.
We believe nursing isn't just a major, it's a calling. We're not just teaching skills. We're cultivating trailblazers who transform healthcare. Every breakthrough, every compassionate touch starts with curiosity, courage, and community. At the Alcorn State University School of Nursing, passion fuels innovation. Your journey starts here. Always innovating, always transforming, always Alcorn.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure. $1.
Appreciate you.
Got it.
Welcome back to the Cedric Thomas program. Coach, how concerned are you as far as getting to the quarterback? No sacks so far through the first 3 games or so. How would you address that?
We just got to, you see Steve and those guys, get some hits on the quarterback on Saturday. And, secondary just got to maintain, staying above the cut. It go hand in hand. The secondary guys getting ran past, then, the pressure won't get there. And vice versa, the guys up front got to be able to get there fast enough to take the pressure off the secondary. So it goes hand in hand. We move Eric Thomas out and Tobias Hinton on the edge to give us some speed. And those guys did a way better job this week. So we'll keep maintaining that and keep working with some personnel, just to be able to get quarterbacks off their spot.
One of the questions that came in, and you addressed, kind of the mood in the locker room and the smiles and all that, despite somebody made the comment they saw the players dancing on the sidelines and we were losing in a situation like that. Did you see that at all?
Oh, no, I didn't see it. If I would have saw it, we would have had an issue. That ain't what we coaching, that ain't what we teaching. I just don't have time to turn around and look, because I'm trying to manage the game and things of that sort. But, for me as a community, it takes a village to raise, all of us. So if you see it, give me some numbers, give me some videos, and I'll take care of that. That's what it takes, because it's the same way if they out in their community and they got that Alcorn football shirt on. I think we can do the exact same thing if we see them doing anything that's not Alcorn like, as a family. But I just don't have time. I'm not able to turn around and monitor behavior as such when I got to get my eyes, on the football game. And so I think it's just work hands in hands on that. But I had a discussion. I did see some smiles, which didn't rub me the right way. And so we had a major discussion about that. But, like I said, if you guys see anything that's inappropriate, hey, you know my number, email me, send me a video. I want documentation, and I definitely get it addressed.
I've never been a coach. I'm not a coach. I watch coaches' demeanor and body language in every sport, football, baseball, basketball. It doesn't matter. Just how locked in as a coach, how locked in and focused are you when you're on that sideline, pacing back and forth? You're trying to block out the cowbells, block out the noise. You're focused on what's going on the field. Just what's going on as far as the grinding of the gears when you're just watching this stuff going back and forth and up and down? One who's maybe been prescribed Adderall could give you an example of it, but if you hadn't, had anything, as such, it's just hard to explain. You really can't explain it, because the minute you're not paying attention for those 3.5 hours, then you lose sight of everything, and it's such a fast game. It's such. You heard the guy that said North Carolina now. Bill Belichick?
Yeah, Belichick, after that first loss, he was just like, man, this game is way different than the NFL. It's just so much faster. And so we in it. And so, but, that ain't the culture we set, and we ain't teaching it. And so, I'm leaning on the Brave Nation. I got a couple people that I trust. So if they see it, send it to me, and I address it with the young adults. It ain't nobody on that sideline want to party and get down much as me. But we got to do that when we win. And right now, this ain't the time to be partying. We got to hold our head down, get in this foxhole, and continue to work and get up out this rut that we in.
601-301-2611 from the text line. Coach, text about penalties. Penalties continue to be an issue. You mentioned that you'll fix it, but it still plagues us. What changes are you going to make to address the issue of penalties?
the guys are playing hard, and then some of those are just subjective. When you look at them, we had a holding call by Cam. I'm not gonna taper them guys down. We still got to play to the game, but I think that's if we can stay right around that 6 to 7, depending on what it is. You don't want to have any, but it's such a subjective call that I'm not gonna get into things as long as to me it's not as the personal fouls and the flagrants, things of that sort. But a hold in here or there, that's just a part of the game.
Yeah, the penalties. We came off the double-digit penalties in one of those games. You feel like we're kind of turning the corner there.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. No personal fouls. No plays that hinder us. From a excessive standpoint. But you got to understand when you're going against what you're going against on that sideline, you better hold. You better do something. You'll get somebody hurt. One of them tackles or one of them linemen don't hold or don't grab that defensive end. That quarterback or that running back, he'll be in the hospital. And so we understand that. We're going to coach and clean, a good game. But it's so subjective when you look at it. And so, my thing is just the excessive, the personal fouls, the roughings, the things of that sort, and, at the end of the day, we're going to put it on the refs.
You came out on the field early after either the timeout or a penalty. You wanted to get some clarification. And early in the game, there was a situation where I think you called the timeout and just want to get a clarity on a call.
Yeah, they was flinching in the neutral zone, and the new rule is now defensive guys can't they can't flinch and cause us the false start, and so we got the false start call, and so I just wanted to make sure my thing is just be fair. If you know me, I ain't gonna do no hooping and hollering on that sideline, but we just got to be fair. If that's the rule, then the rule should be implemented for both. And they came right back and said they gave them a warning, and so I was fine with it. Just like for week 1, we had a whole Southland crew. I didn't know any of those guys, and we got 15 penalties, and I think they got 6. Come on, that's just that's disheartening. But we're gonna coach. Coach hard. We're going to make sure that we're doing things the right way. But like I said, it's just such a subjective situation when you're dealing with the refs.
I remember you sent some of those clips in. Were you able to get any results, any feedback from that?
Yeah. We had about 3 that, that their supervisor of their refereeing conference, said that those
Southland?
Calls, that those calls, wasn't to the liking of to their justification. And so that was good. That's all we can ask for, because I know that's not what we teaching, that's not what we coaching. Those guys are human too. Those guys make mistakes. It's such a bang deal. Yeah, you got instant replay, but a lot of times you can't replay certain calls. And so I just wanted to make sure that the narrative ain't we're just out here coaching a brand of football that's undisciplined and unstructured, because that's not the case.
What is the difference? And we played FCS, we played Southland, of course, and we've had a SWAC game. Is there a difference in the way SWAC games are called compared to Southland, compared to what we saw on Saturday?
Almost definitely. If you in the any part of 1AA Division II conferences, that matters. It totally matters. They're gonna call a Southland game totally different than they call a game from the SWAC.
What's the difference, you think?
From a standpoint of just, the speed and the Southland is a little bit more physical type conference. They're going to do more of the run game stuff. So those guys are going to play in the box and not a space game. So you can get a tug here and there, in the SWAC. We're going to play on the edges, on the perimeter. So, you won't be able to use your hands out wide. We get a holding call on the perimeter against Mississippi State, and I'm sitting there saying, that's – he's not impacting the play, but that's how they call it. Cam, we ran a perimeter run, and he put his hands on the guard. on the 3 technique, kicked the 3 technique out. They call holding, and so it's definitely called, totally different. Those same calls against A&M, on the pass interference. We got none of those against Northwestern. But, when we played at Alabama A&M, we was able to get, 2 or 3 of those pass interference. So it's definitely, difference. My thing to the refs every game is, hey, let's just be fair. If they're going to do it, then, allow us to do it. Because that's just disheartening for, I got to look in the player's face and, know things are not being called the right way. But just continue to tell them, hey, look, keep your cool about you. Hey, look, this how you got to, do this particular technique.
And we had a situation again where we had a player cramp up and we were charged a timeout.
Well, he wasn't cramping up. He dislocated his collarbone. His shoulder came out of place. And so, like I told him, your leg's good. Just bag up, But his shoulder popped out. He got up. And then as he moved his shoulder around, he noticed that it was out of socket. And so We constantly trying to go through it, but like I told him, player safety, man. You got to just stay down. You teach them, at practice and everything they do, get up, get up, get up. You got to be tough, fight through it. But now you just got to change the coaching and the teaching part because those timeouts are important. So you basically just got to lay down after the play.
So I'm trying to figure that out. Okay, so a shoulder popped out, but yet we're still charged a timeout.
Yep, because he got up. If he made the tackle and he just completely lay down and stay down, then they'll come get him. But if he make the tackle and he get up and they spot the football and he move his shoulder and it comes out again, then he got to bag up. He can't come out the game, or we got to run him off and try to run somebody on in a timely manner.
That's tough, Coach.
It's very tough. I get the pretense of what they're trying to do to stop offense from going fast, but it's just you blurring the lines now of guys just completely staying down or guys staying out there and being being injured.
That's a tough deal for me to I don't know. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it because it's happened to us twice now.
Yeah, and you're talking about second half, man. Them timeouts are important. I want to keep all of them, down the stretch. And so I address the guys, and we're going to set up a station in the morning, just for that, just so guys can. I'd rather for them to just lay on the ground now. You just been coached and trained and taught, since Little League. Hey, you better run, get up, shake it off. Hey, you get your bearings about you. But now, you got to rethink it. Really got to just sit down there if you ain't feeling, if you're feeling any kind of out of place, just sit down and worst come to worst, we don't get charged a timeout. We take you out the game.
So if you just lay still and don't move and let the trainers come get you, you go out there and check on them. You're not going to be charged with a time. But if you move at all, if you get up.
Yep, you get up and they spot that ball and you all of a sudden your bell rung and you go down you're going to be charged a timeout.
Okay. All right, so we'll just have to keep a definite eye on that as we go forward. Well, Coach, we got the bye week coming up here. Early bye week, and you talked about it early on. Got a bunch of injuries to deal with, this early in the season. So what's the schedule going to be like? Will hard work throughout the week and then let them go home, or what's the for a day or so? What's the schedule?
Yeah, we're gonna work. In our mindset, we got a game this Saturday, and so we just got out the meetings, with them. Just put the game plan together. We're gonna get up in the morning, go special team, normal time, and gonna do a lot of individual. Some technique stuff, but also get the UAPB stuff in there. So we're gonna, it's a regular week for us.
So no the usual downtime.
Yeah, it's gonna be the usual. And we ain't saying off week. Won't nobody in the building be hollering off week. It's definitely not that.
But normally though, I mean, on a normal bye week, let's say if the bye week was a month from now, playing 6-7 games in, then you would. But because of what it is, it's an early bye week. You're going to be in the facility working hard.
Yeah, we got to continue to, we got to get better. Guys understand it, and one thing about those guys, they're not a stranger to work. We just got to be able to do it under the lights. That's the biggest thing. And I think these first 3 games, you see the improvements. You see guys getting better in this big stage. It's not bothering some of them, but some of them still kind of getting them kinks out just with the big stage. And so I think this is a really good week to clean up some fundamentals, some technique work, and also from a roster standpoint to try to see, hey, look, how many we're going to be able to, help us down the stretch. Is it going to be 25? Is it 26? What's this young man's threshold as far as playing? Can he play 10 plays? Can he play 15 plays? And we'll kind of narrow all that down, and clean everything up. We'll go over all the big plays and explosive that we've given up, understanding why, walk through it, and then get ready to continue to just get ready for UAPB.
I know Braves fans are kind of concerned, flush this game out, what happened this past Saturday. We know what happened in the second half, but 3 things, Coach, that we have to work on. It all kind of starts with UAPB. We don't have a bye week until the end of the season and hope we can continue throughout in the postseason. What are the things right now, after Northwestern State, after Alabama A&M, Mississippi State, some things that we definitely have to clean up and work on?
The secondary, has to, stay above the cut. We're giving up too many explosive with bad eyes and non-communication, so we got to communicate at a high level, do a really good job versus that. Offensively, we got to maintain the football. We can't turn it over. We got to catch it. And I'm putting maintaining the football, such as drops, in that deal also. And, we got a special team. We got to clean that up. We can't drop punts. And, if we do that, then I think we'll get up out this week, with some really good some really good preparation as we continue to build on UAPB.
What would you tell Braves fans that are concerned? Like, there's some concern out there. UAPB, we got Prairie View coming up, then we got homecoming, then we go to Tallahassee. Fans are concerned. How would you quell those concerns?
Yeah, just we gonna work. We just gonna work. Talking ain't gonna do nothing now. And so we'll just show you by actions. The only thing we worried about is UAPB. And we'll start on that in the morning. And so right now, just continue to work, continue to get better. And we're going to continue to strive to be where we need to be down the stretch. And it started at 6:30 in the morning. So time out for talking. It's just time to go to work.
With UAPB not playing this week, there's only 4 conference teams that are playing. 8 of them are off this Saturday. Does that change anything? You got some tape from this past Saturday, but they're off. So does that change anything in terms of how you look at UAPB?
No, it don't, because we got the whole last year in the catalog, just like they got all ours, whole year from the catalog. They still got the same OC, got a new DC, but he's still in the system. So you can look at those first 3 games and kind of tell, there's some similarities to it, just like with us. And so, they'll have an opportunity to go in and clean some things up and add some things here and there, and we'll be able to do the same. So, I think it's just more so, us preparing, just for the things that we got to get corrected and understanding, seizing the moment on those plays and the mishaps we had in the first 3.
Well, Coach, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Let's get ready for UAPB.
Yes, sir.
That game's in Memphis, by the way, at 6 o'clock. Should be a fun event. A lot of activity going on in Memphis that week. We'll look at that. We'll look at the bye week as well. For our producers, Jamario Brooks, Cedric Tillman, I'm Charles Edmond, head coach Cedric Thomas. We'll talk to you next Monday night as we get ready for UAPB and this grind of a stretch run we got coming up. No more bye weeks after Saturday. We'll talk to you next Monday night. So long.